Well, good afternoon and welcome everyone. It is so good to be back with you at the waterhole today. My name is Amy and I will be with you for the show today, but also the rest of the week. And I'm looking forward to it. We are starting off here in the beautiful Tembe Elephant Park in Maputoland in northern KwaZulu-Natal of South Africa. Now, a very warm welcome to all of you who are watching with us today. And just remember that this is a live and interactive show. So you are more than welcome to send through your comments and questions to me. In fact, please do. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know who you are, where you're watching from, maybe what you have to drink, maybe what your snacks are for the show, or perhaps this is on in the background and you're at work, who knows. But any way you wish to do it, you can send through those comments and questions on the Wild Earth website or the app. You can also chat to us on the YouTube chat stream, or you can join the conversation on X using the hashtag WildEarth. Now, we actually spent quite a bit of time here on Friday, and there were one or two impala females who I thought were about to burst. So I'm interested to see if any more lambs have been born over the weekend. I do see that I think there is one there sitting down. Looks like the female on the left still needs to drop her lamb. But it is that time of year where all the impalas, which are these sort of brownish antelopes in the foreground, have their little ones. And of course, we can't not mention the elephants that are there dust bathing. Animal lover, hello, lovely to hear from you. Elephant therapy for the afternoon. It is always a wonderful thing to have. There are lots of little babies, everybody. This is what I was saying. I'm sure there were going to be some new impala lambs that dropped over the weekend because there were some very pregnant females. Oh my word, the one on the left has very droopy ears. Is it just me? Or maybe it's just holding them down. I haven't seen a baby with such droopy ears before. That is so cute. It might have a little bit, it could be a problem that it has, that those ears just aren't going to pop up. But if you compare it to the other ones, so we'll see. But it could be something that's just a bit of a defect from when it was born. Oh, itchy. Looks fine in all other aspects. Okay, it is moving them slightly. It's just funny to see them with those ears down so far. Can you imagine these little impalas finally having other little impalas around? The ones that we've seen born so far have been pretty much alone. And now they get to meet each other. They're like, oh, you're also small like me. Immediately have that connection, and They form what we refer to as little nurseries, just like this one, where the little ones all sort of hang out together. Wow, that female. We were talking about some that still need to drop their babies, and I honestly feel like she could give birth during the show. One more impala needs to join this group of 5. And these definitely weren't here on Friday, so I'm sure that at least 3 or 4 were born over the weekend. This one really does have droopy ears. I think it is keeping them down, but it's sort of its default position in comparison to the others who you can clearly see hold theirs up quite high. Oh, George, thank you for that info. That's great to know. You saw it for the first time last week with these sort of drooping or falling ears. Okay, so it obviously is just how its ears are going to be. But you never know what might change as it grows up and develops a little bit. But we might have a impala with those drooped over ears. Oh, but that one is so cute, isn't it? Spas, hello. I'm so glad that you're enjoying live at the waterhole in the afternoon and you are enjoying the newborn babies at Tenmi. Thank you, Amy. It's such a pleasure. Ooh, does it have something on its side or is that just its... Almost looks like there's a bit of... I don't know, its fur was growing a bit differently there on the side. It could have just been, I don't know, something that's not to worry about. Oh, Catherine, me too. Goodness me, a live birth would be unbelievable. That female that we were looking at just now, I mean, that's definitely possible. There's a few. I mean, we're not even in December yet. So we've got the rest of the week in November until Saturday. And sometimes many of the babies only drop in that sort of first week of December. So there's still many, many more to come. You can see how pregnant these female impalas are. Goodness me, her belly is huge. Forest green, no, I wouldn't say that that lamb will be abandoned. You could see that the others were around it still. Um, However, it really does, come down to many other times for these little lambs, survival of the fittest. And if those floppy ears mean that it is a weakened individual, or its sense of hearing or ability to respond fast or react, reaction time might be slower than others, it's the one that's going to be eaten, which is a sad reality, but it's part of the reality of the bush. So the reason that all these impalas will have their babies at the same time is to flood the market, as it were. There's a much higher chance of survival if they all get born at one time, because only so many can be eaten. Predators can only eat so many. So you will have some surviving through this very young, early age. And so the ones that generally, if they're all the same, they all have sort of the equal chance. But if there's one that's, let's say, got the floppy ears or something like that, These bulls look like they are enjoying a very relaxing Monday afternoon in the shade. Well, at least two of them. I'm not sure if they won't let the third one be there as well, or if he's just enjoying some sun. But I love these bulls at Tembe. They seem to have so much character. If you look at this one with the tusks, those ears are really tattered. And it's something that's quite common here with these ones. It's very, very interesting. All right, well, some warthogs have arrived at Canoe Pan, so let's head over there. Well, here we are back at Mabula, which is in the Waterberg region, also in South Africa, a little bit further north. And these warthogs have come down to the waterhole, of course, probably for a drink, but also probably to find some mud. Looks like an Egyptian goose that's busy balancing on one leg there. And there's also some oxpeckers that are visiting these warthogs. Egyptian goose is deciding to find another spot that isn't so busy. So, Tammy, it's a great question. You want to know why warthogs would go down onto their knees to graze. So, it's all about really getting their mouths closer to the ground. So, um, warthogs are grazers, but they also are very much bulb eaters, roots, that sort of thing underneath the ground. They dig that up quite a bit with their snouts as well as their tusks. And in order to get low enough, they need to bend their front legs. And it's really quite as simple as that. So that is why we see them sometimes going down onto their knees to get sort of deeper, I suppose, into the ground to where they need to try to dig out from. Sometimes they graze even or eat grass with their knees bent as well, and that's because sometimes the grass is quite short, and so that also helps them just get a little bit lower down, better leverage over whatever it is that they're eating. Interesting interaction going on here. The bigger warthog has quite some impressive tusks, I must say. Well, these warthogs are having a marvelous time here at the waterhole, from amazing mud wallowing. The one is about to get down in there, I'm sure, to the perfect rubbing post that they have there on the side. Davy, you'd like to know when the piglets arrive? So warthogs, it's interesting with them. They can have babies pretty much any time in summer. Sometimes they have them sort of quite late. Sometimes we can see them with babies now. We can see them sort of, they sometimes have two separate times where they would have little ones, sometimes even around September. And then late in summer, towards the end, like March, April, there'll be another batch coming through. And that is, of course, all to do with food availability and that sort of thing. So these are probably a mom with, or even three piglets that are all from the same litter, or that definitely looks like a male in the middle. They are a little bit younger, maybe from last year's litter, a year or so old. And then you get one or two bigger ones in between. It could also be a little bit of a bachelor herd, definitely another male that's joined in there. So some young boys hanging out together, which can also happen. Oh, wow. This is just the best warthog rubbing show we could have ever asked for. And it's amazing because often we don't get to see this behavior because they're so skittish and move away with the vehicles, and especially on foot or anything like that. So to have a camera like this where we get to look into the private lives of warthogs is awesome. And this is just so hilarious. Spas, you'd like to know how common Egyptian geese are? They're very common. So it's not that that there are hundreds of them everywhere, but you're almost guaranteed to see them, one or two of them around at the different water holes and pans. Definitely here. Every time I visited Gnu Pan myself when I was driving for our live safaris at Mabula a few weeks ago, there was always a pair here at Gnu Pan. And yeah, so I would say they are a common bird. They're not around every single corner, but definitely almost a guaranteed sighting at water holes where there is still water around. It's definitely Warthog Spa Day today. Goodness me. I don't think I've seen them use rubbing post for so long in every which way. Goodness me. animal lover, you'd like to know if male warthogs are super territorial. So, no, warthogs are not territorial animals. They do have what we refer to as home rangers. Oh my word, look at this one. Living its best life. It just looks so content, doesn't it? It's like, oh, that just feels like the best spot in the world. So not territorial animals, much like zebra, giraffe, elephants as well. They just sort of have areas or places where their little family group will hang out. But males can be super aggressive towards one another. Also, the antelopes as well, like kudu or nyala, they might not have territories, but they can be very aggressive, the males towards one another when competing for mating rights with females. Birds eye, yes, there are definitely animals that oxpeckers would avoid landing on. We saw some earlier here with the warthogs, but I think with all their rubbing, they've had to move off and wait until they're not so um, busy to, to hop back onto them. Elephants, for one, you won't. I won't say ever, but I've never seen an oxpecker on a warthog. I mean, sorry, on an elephant. That is because they just don't tolerate them. They're quite sensitive, and I think the oxpeckers bother them too much. So there have been reoccurrences where it's been photographed, but very quickly that elephant is like, nope, you can't land on me. And then, of course, animals, predators. So things like cats, you won't be seeing an oxpecker on them, even though they have ticks. That's another one that's just not worth it for them to hop onto. But for the most part, most of the herbivores are animals that they want to land on. Okay, well, these warthogs have been an absolute treat today. Let's head not too far from here, actually, Maritown. Oh, beautiful. Here we are in the Pilanesberg National Park, where there are some impala and zebra coming to drink, and an impala lamb that's arrived here on the left. So they are dropping all over. thought that was a snake on the left. Oh my word. I was like, is that a black mamba? But no, it just looks to be a root or a branch or something that the elephants ate and dropped there. Betty, you'd like to know if or how the animals still are able to drink the water that other animals wallow in. Um, it's a fascinating thing because if we look at what happens at these water holes, I mean, this water is filthy. Lots of dung and urinating from elephants and buffalo, even rhino. I mean, sometimes, or everything really does whatever it wants to do. Some of these pools have hippos in as well that do all of their business in it, as well as let alone, all the parasites and things that they wallow and get that mud in to their skin, and sometimes even those parasites falling off inside the water. But at the end of the day, Betty, these animals are so well adapted to these environments and their stomachs are very different to ours in terms of what they can handle and what will make them sick in comparison to what will make us sick. So their acidity levels in their stomachs and the bacteria and the enzymes and things that they have to aid their digestive process, as well as the sort of immune system, I suppose, that they have to fight off certain things is much stronger than what we would have to the specific diseases and bacteria that they would find in the water here. So that is why they can drink this water and be fine. There are, of course, sometimes things that can affect them that they do get sick from. For example, in very dry years, anthrax can become an issue. That is sort of like an extreme example, but it does sort of come sometimes from water holes where the mud and the spores have been churned up because the animals have had to sort of dig up quite a bit within the water hole itself. But for the most part, they are perfectly fine to drink the water that we see out here. Veronica, there is a way you can tell male from female just by looking at them. It is tricky, it's not super obvious. The stallions, and I'm talking mature individuals now, not younger zebras, but mature individuals. The males will be larger. They'll have thicker necks. They'll also have quite clear genitalia when you can get a look between the back legs, which is also quite difficult sometimes. But the probably the easiest and most well-known way to tell apart a male and female zebra is to look underneath the tail at the thickness of the black between their rumps, so their left and right sort of bum cheeks, as it were. If you look at a male, it is very not much black at all. It's almost like the white of the rumps touch each other. The female has a much larger black band between the back of the legs because of her genitalia. So that is probably the most obvious thing that you can see if you can see them from behind. It almost looks like the female is wearing sort of briefs, a much thicker sort of line between the white of her rumps, whereas with the male, it almost looks like he has a much thinner piece of black between there. So you see, like there now, that looks like a female. The one that just turned away there. You could see how thick the black was underneath her tail. Let's see if we can see this next one. Could possibly be a male then, if that was a female. So, Spas, anthrax, oh, it's an interesting topic. And I was fortunate enough to have to do a bit of research on animal diseases recently for a lecture prep that I was doing. And when it comes all about the spores, and the spores that then, when exposed and in the animal's body, become, potentially deadly and causes terrible disease. And the spores can lay dormant for 100 years. They can just be in the mud or underground or wherever they lay. And then, like I said, times of drought or extreme drought is when anthrax can flare up, specifically in the wild. To answer you how those anthrax got there in the first place, it's very tricky to say. But yes, if they, these areas were always wild, which we are very, in the Kruger specifically, that area was always a wild area, which we're very lucky to be able to have had animals there the whole time. So anthrax could have been something that those spores were always around and just goes through a cycle throughout the years. And it's interesting how they get passed on. So let's say a water hole dries up or there's very little water left. So what happens is that the animals all have to sort of move in to this one little spot, and their hooves and their feet dig up deeper and deeper into the mud. You might get them actually starting to dig quite deep to get water that's lower down. And because of that, that is where the spores come out. And when they're out of the ground, they become, let's say, active again. So, just to continue with that, regarding the anthrax, it is something that, like I said, happens in the very dry times of the year. Or not the year, but dry times within years of serious drought. And just to add that this is definitely looking like a male zebra that we saw the genitalia there between the legs. Um, but yes, so anthrax is it's a terrible thing to have break out, but it's also a natural culling mechanism. So it's often in times of serious drought alone causes certain animal species to suffer, but it also is the way that nature can help control its own numbers. And although it's terrible, it is something that is part of, you know, we're not talking about the sort of bio weapon anthrax that's been made in a lab that can potentially be used as chemical warfare that you hear about. But this is the natural occurring milder version of anthrax, let me put it that way, but it can still be very serious. As humans, we're not really at risk of that in the wild, because unless we go and sort of handle a carcass with our hands, um, the we separate that with having the vehicles, because it needs to be directly ingested for or into some sort of an opening in the body. But for the animals out here, you can think how easily it can spread just through carcasses, through vultures that then go and bathe themselves immediately after they've eaten, and all those spores are now in the very little water that's left. And then something comes and drinks, and then the flies that are on the carcass have eaten and then go and regurgitate on the leaves, which leaves spores there, which then the kudu comes along and eats. So it's just the cycle of the way anthrax can spread through the bush when it does, and that's why we call it an outbreak. And the only thing that can cure it, I know many of you might be wondering that, is really the rain. So we wait for the rains to come, and then what happens? Oh, there seems to be more. I don't know if that's the same zebra, but there is a zebra and impala moving in from the left. The rains come, and those spores and all of sort of the things around that are needing to be washed away get then washed down the rivers and systems eventually into the sea, and the salt water, the salt in the seawater actually kills the spores. And that's how basically anthrax can end. And so the water holes get filled up again, and those spores go back and lie dormant until they have to be they reach oxygen again, which makes them active, and they can then reproduce within the host body. Oh, look at that little one. Goodness me. Stick close to mom. And unfortunately, with the lambing season of these impalas happening and the wildebeests coming up soon, it is the season where we see a lot of amazing sightings, actually, with wild dogs and leopards hunting these little impalas. Not always the nicest thing to think about, that's for sure, but it is one of those times where they are so easy because they are really inexperienced, and they are on the list of prey items for many predators out here, including something like a martial eagle. Well, this has been a wonderful time here at Kwamari Town with the zebras and impalas. Let's head over to Stony Point. Oh, there we have some of these dassies, rock hyraxes, here in Stony Point, which is in the Western Cape of South Africa, right on the coast. And the sun is shining finally. The last few days of the waterhole shows that I've been on last week was just cloudy, cloudy, cloudy. I think it was even raining a little bit potentially. And we've been spoiled with some very cute sightings. I think we've got one little baby on the left here. So these two, the one sitting on top of the other one, and then we've got a tiny little face here on the left-hand side. And the one thing that a dassie loves is the sun. Oh, Gigi, they are, aren't they? They are so adorable. Oh, I thought this one was lying on top of the one at the bottom, but there's actually a drain pipe there. And that's what it's lying in. It's not actually lying on top of the other one at all. Link, you say that you love the sound of the ocean at Betty's Bay. I mean, absolutely. It's one of those very calming ocean sound. I mean, people love to listen to the sound of the sea. I think people have apps for these things or playlists you can download that you can listen to that to help you fall asleep or whatever it might be. And in fact, it's actually very quiet today. So I think the sea is very calm. It looks like perfect weather here at Betty's Bay. So animal lover dassies are daytime diurnal animals, so they will eat during the day. Sometimes I don't know how true this is actually, but there have been reports sometimes very bright full moon nights of dassies been seen, but I don't know if they're going to do any feeding at that time. But yes, so they'll eat for short times during the day, multiple times possibly, but that is something that happens in the daytime and not necessarily at night. They creep back into all these little rock crevices and go to sleep. Oh, wonderful! Let's head over to Tembe with a giraffe. Oh, beautiful. A giraffe drinking, a male giraffe, if anyone is wondering. I was looking at his horns. Don't know what all you were looking at. Very dark, this individual. His markings, really impressive. Well, I can hear a lot of weavers. And it's interesting that this one's ears also seem to be a little bit droopy, this giraffe. I don't know, maybe he's just holding them that way, but it does seem like the sort of almost what we refer to as the second set of ossicones that grow behind on very mature males. There, you can see them there. They are, I don't know, pushing down a little bit, some excess growth there. Catherine, you say that the giraffe looks quite thin. Yeah, I think I do agree with you. Definitely there around sort of the pelvis and the spine. I see what you're saying in terms of the bones sticking out quite a bit. And there could be so many things that contribute to that. But I think just looking at how aged this giraffe is, it could just be something to do with the fact that it's reaching the end of its life, and so its body's not absorbing as much nutrition as it normally would. Perhaps also the wearing down of the teeth, the similar thing that elephants go through. So just look at, there's some scarring there. The bones are quite prominent, especially on his hindquarters. The head's very calcified, so lots of little knobs and things like that. But he could also be, together with old age, be suffering from some sort of a disease, which is also a possibility. Yes, but absolutely, it is wonderful to see giraffe here. I have seen before, briefly walking past, but this is by far one of the longest sightings that I've seen of one actually coming down to drink as well. And you can even see his right ear there is quite tattered. So although the pelvic bones are quite prominent, the rest of him looks pretty good in terms of weight and muscle and that sort of thing. Animal lover, I suppose it can be both, but very often, other than if it is old age, they're becoming weaker, the organs start to just, every animal out here has a lifespan. There's a reason for that. It's not just that they have to get a disease in order to die. They can very easily just become too old. So giraffe's lifespan usually around 20 to 25 years. But depending on how they live their life, depending on what they might have something internal that we can't even see, whether it's a tumor or something that might affect them that shortens that lifespan. We just won't know. But most of the time, especially with the very large animals, and outside of the Kruger, so often with the Kruger, you may find TB being one of the main culprits for death in some of the animals that we see, particularly predators actually, and then of course buffalo, which are the hosts of that. So when it comes to this particular giraffe, very well just might be that it's nearing the end of its life, and so certain things within its body just aren't working the way that they should anymore. And most probably that has to do with being able to get nutrition from food. And so often that has to do with the wearing down of the teeth. So that doesn't only apply to elephants, even though they have six sets. Giraffes will have one set, and over time that is going to weigh down. They're also ruminants. They rechew their food, and by the time you reach 20 years, I'm sure those teeth are quite flat already, and they're not able to rechew enough to be able to aid that digestive process, to be able to absorb it as much nutrition, along with their other organs, just the wear and tear of a long life, that eventually just the body starts to weaken. And often then, before the animal can die from, as we call, natural causes, a predator will hunt it, if the predator density is high enough. So who knows what might happen to this particular male. But if, for example, a pride of lions notice he's weakened, or he's this is my first herd of elephants arriving at Tembe. This is very cool. We always just see bulls here. Anyway, just to finish off my thought there with this giraffe, that if a pride of lions was to see that this particular male is struggling in some way, they would perhaps target him before he could even die from natural causes. This is very cool, I must say, to see a herd arriving here. I mean, I know that it has happened before, but I haven't actually seen it. We always just have this group of bulls that hang out here, Bachelor Herd. These mummies are on the move, though. Goodness me. Do they even want water? Doesn't seem like it. Just quickly. Just moved right past. Oh, okay, at least these are stopping here. That's good. Well, it really is. Oh, wow. That's quite a big set of tusks you have there, sir. It's Belinda, there's a lot of babies around for sure, and it is rather impressive. And it is part of the summer, so there are some animals that have seasonal breeding that happens now, but there are others that don't, including elephants. But we tend to notice that they still seem to have their babies around the summertime, and that all adds together to make the summer, November, December, January, February, the months where we see a lot of babies out in the bush. Animal lover, I definitely think scent plays a part, not only with elephants being able to recognize each other, but groups of animals in general that live um, in sort of a social structure that involves more than one. But even if we look at some of the solitary animals, scent is massive for leopards. Well, okay, lions aren't solitary, but for leopards, for example, being able to recognize individuals. They know who's been scent marking here, who's been scent marking there, and even if they aren't family, it's still a very important thing that they use. And I think scent does definitely play a role with elephants as well. So much happening at Tembe today. Oh my goodness, it's quite amazing. Don't know what this female Inyala is doing. Looks like she's got herself into a little bit of a stuck in the mud situation. Not that she's stuck, but a big elephant walk there. You can see how that ground is disturbed. Interesting. It looks like those impalas moved out the way of the elephants that are coming from the left there now. Wanting that shade. Shame. I think they'll just move to the next little patch of shade. There was a question earlier from Spas regarding what dangerous spores could be fatal for the ecosystem and animals, and how these spores get into the ecosystem, and what dangerous diseases are found in the bush. So the really only spore-borne disease is anthrax. It's the one that is most well known and most well documented, and that is based from spores. Other potentially fatal diseases include bovine tuberculosis, from which the buffaloes, particularly within the Kruger National Park, all have TB, and that is passed on through to multiple different animals, particularly lions who eat a lot of the buffalo, but then that can move across to different animals. Hyenas, I ever seem to be immune from most diseases, actually. And I think it's been said that that has to do with the extremely strong acidity levels within their stomachs, and it just kills everything. So they don't have to worry about it. But I think it also has to do with the immune system, because some things might enter from cuts and scrapes on their bodies or within their mouth, rather than the eating of a carcass, rather than going through the stomach. You can also look at swine disease, which is in warthogs. You can look at African horse sickness found in zebras. So there's a lot of overlap. Foot and mouth disease is another one that can happen to many of the herbivores, and it's something that affects these animals to a lesser or more degree, and it's something that is often because of the proximity to domestic animals. Yes, there's a fence, but sometimes those barriers are broken, and so the things are passed on from one way to the other, and it can also mean that that affects the animals that we see in the parks. And of course, there's also you can't really go without mentioning rabies, although rabies isn't really such a massive issue as it has been a very long time ago. That's sort of been managed. But I think one of the most prominent diseases that affects the animals that we see, particularly in the Greater Kruger, is bovine tuberculosis. So forest green, when animals get TB, it also affects the lungs, respiratory system. I've heard lion cubs before actually coughing. You can hear that heaviness around the chest, and yeah, they don't sound well. But actually, for most animals that have it, it only really shows right towards the end of the life of the animal, and it can lay, I don't want to say dormant, but just the animal can test positive for TB, but it doesn't really affect their life too much. But what it does eventually show as, particularly, is rapid weight loss, the swelling around the face, and eventually death. Teddy, it looks like this little elephant is having a mud wallow. Well, it was trying to. I don't know how successful it was. It does look rather dry in that spot. And if you're referring to the woolly-necked stork eating insects, yes, very possible. That's what it's doing. The elephant wouldn't be eating insects. And we wonder, oh, is it going to give it a little bit of a chase? They can be very cheeky when they're this age. I would say maybe 5 years old or so, this little one. And this individual with the floppy ear, I think it's the same one. I've seen multiple times. Although this is looking like a female, and I think the last one that I saw with the floppy ear like this was a male. This must be mom and calf, yeah, although the calf is quite old already. Oh, this one has had a good mud wallow. You can see it glistening. Look how tattered those ears are. It's something that, I mean, all elephants can get tattered ears as they get older, but the elephants, yeah, I don't know if it's just their genetics that their ears are very, very soft at the ends, or just because the vegetation here is very thorny, perhaps. But they tend to have very frayed, is the word, ears, these big bulls. Brady, you'd like to know about Egyptian geese. Are they called that because they are originally from Egypt or just because of their coloration? So I believe it is because of their place of origin in the Nile River Valley, which is in Egypt. I don't know if they were the only place in the world that they were ever found originally, but I think that was the first place that they were documented and found. Hence the name, which is often why we get those Latin names and things like that, like Senegalensis, for example. The first place they were seen was in Senegal. That's just an example on the top of my head, but there's a few different sort of Latin names for plants as well as for animals that incorporate that. And for the Egyptian goose, it's the same. Now, not only was the Nile River Valley their origin, but also that they were sacred to the Egyptians because of their look about them. They have this very, sort of actually quite beautiful coloration for a bird. And they were held as a sacred, had sacred status amongst the Egyptians. George, I'm so glad that you're enjoying the show today. It really has been wonderful. We've had an amazing show, so much variety. It's gone so fast. We've got half an hour left. I was just looking at the time. I was like, oh my word, that's crazy. This female, though, I was going to say something wrong, but I think that's just a bit of mud. I think she might have walked through or brushed up against a log that an elephant had used or something like that. That female is popping in the back. Oh my word. That's huge. You can hear the oxpeckers, lots of tweeting, calling happening as they're moving around. Well, this has really been so amazing. Tembi is so beautiful today. Who knows, we may be back here, but for now, let's head over to Stony Point for some birding. Okay, we've got some cormorants and a gull here. Probably white-breasted from what we've seen around Stony Point before. Also sometimes see terns, but I must say seabirds I'm working on it. The more time I spend at the coast, and even now coming up over Christmas and New Year, I'll be at the sea coastal area, and I am going to work very hard on being able to identify the different terns that we get. I know that there's so many actually, and there are some very differential features between them, and I find it fascinating. And one area that I'd like to learn more about as well, be able to identify some of my seabirds, hopefully see one or two rarities as well. That will be fantastic. You can see with the white-breasted cormorant, it has obviously the white breast, but it's got more of a blue eye. in comparison to the reed cormorant, which has a red eye, darker eye. It's not so clear now here, but they're also a lot larger birds, these cormorants, in comparison to the reed or cape cormorant. And we've been lucky with seeing some of the penguins here as well. There we go. Myself and Zumi were on the same page. They are very, very cute. And they've been hanging out here for a while. I mean, we haven't seen them earlier in the year. I didn't see penguins here, but they have become, now they're sort of hanging out in this spot. Well, they are all the Egyptian geese that we were talking about. Uh, Animal lover, you want to know when mating season is for the penguins. So this particular species is actually different between Namibia and South Africa. Namibia is actually expecting its breeding season peak now, sort of November, December. South Africa, I believe, is a little bit later. So somewhere between March to May is when we'll see them breeding. But they can actually breed throughout the year. That's sort of the time that they tend to have their little ones. But I believe that they can actually breed throughout the year depending on conditions. And it's interesting that when it comes to their breeding, they have to incubate that egg for about a month and a bit, month and a half maybe. Basically 4 to 6 weeks, I would say, somewhere around there, probably more, 5, 6 weeks. And both the female and the male will be responsible for actually incubating that egg. Or the eggs, usually 2 of them actually. And so it's going to be exciting should they choose to breed here on this beach, that we may get to maybe see some of the little ones. Penelope, I know. The water looks very inviting, but it is icy, icy cold. Don't be fooled. This is the Atlantic Ocean. It's a common misconception that the Atlantic and Indian Oceans meet at Cape Point, but that is not correct. And Cape Point is actually further west from where we are looking at now, much closer to Cape Town. But the actual meeting point is Cape Agulhas, which is the southernmost tip of Africa. And that is further east from Betty's Bay. Daniel, there most certainly can be great whites off the shore, not, right here per se, but further away, great whites are definitely along the coast of South Africa. Well, it seems that the warthogs are still at Canoe Pan, so let's head back to Mabula. Apologies, everyone. We just lost the cameras there, but we have come back to Djuma. Can I just say the brief look there at Hyena Pan is amazing how green it's getting. Wow, wow, wow. This waterhole is still looking very, very low. There's supposed to be some cooler weather coming to the Lowveld later this week. It's very hot for the next 3 days, high 30s. But there should be a bit of a storm, some rain coming from about Thursday, I think, Wednesday night into Thursday. Well, there's one young male that seems to have found a spot of shade here at Juma, but let's head back over to Tembi. Well, this has been the waterhole of the show today, really. There's been so much happening. Elephants, impalas, lots of birds, giraffe. And I think it's just that time now, nearing to 2:30 in the afternoon, where it's just so hot. And you can see these impalas, some of them lying down now, heads flat. The elephants have also found shade, and there's really nothing else for them to do other than just wait out the heat. They're trying to do as little as possible, because doing more means just getting hotter. Because as you do, as you would know as well, as people, we do stuff and we start sweating, or we start, feeling a little bit warmer. And it's exactly the same for the animals, because you're burning calories, which lets off heat. And so now, in order to just try and be as cool as possible, they do as little as possible. All right, let's head back over to Canoe Pan. Oh, the sable herd is here for a drink. This is wonderful. They are so beautiful. They've had a few youngsters as well, one or two calves, but That bull that was drinking just to the left is so impressive. He has such huge horn. Oh, there's a zebra as well. Definitely a pregnant female here in front of us. Goodness me. You can see that coloration difference, that very large bull there with those very impressive horns, dark, almost black in color. And the females all being a lighter sort of brown color. Mandy, they are very cute, aren't they? The little ones with the small horns. When I was here and I saw this herd, there were two calves that could have been around the 6 month mark. Based on, I think they have their little ones earlier in the year, around April or so. Which made sense. Oh my word. Surely you can't still be suckling. This is a very big zebra. Wow. They do suckle all the way till a year, but that one looked quite big. Anyway, interesting. And warthogs are still here. This is amazing. They've really enjoyed the GNU pan today, from mud wallowing and scratching on that rubbing post. They've made the most of their time here at the waterhole. Egyptian goose with a feather that is out of place. We wonder why these birds preen, and that's part of it, getting their feathers back in line. It could also be losing that feather and it needs to fall out. Rosie Adams, it is an absolute pleasure to do this show for you and with you. And like I said, I'll be here till Friday. So I'm looking forward to what we can see over the next 4 days. It's going to be awesome. You can see this Egyptian goose is opening its beak. That's one of the things we see birds do when they try to cool down. Oh, Spice, absolutely. It really has been a fantastic day. I mean, having those elephants at Tembi, now Sable at Mabula, it is wonderful to see the animals and to have that variety in the show today. Wow, really special, and just so much happening everywhere. Even Stony Point with the dussies and birds, penguins, which are birds, but they get their own special category because they are just adorable. I wonder if that is that cormorant that we often see. Or are these little grebes? Oh, they are little grebes. That's very cute. Having a bit of a water bath. There were 2 of them. Oh my goodness, what is it doing? That was very interesting. I don't think I've seen a little grebe do that before. Definitely cleaning and preening, but it's also, wow, goodness me. It almost looks like it's drowning. I mean, it's not, but they sort of stick the whole backside down. That's fascinating. Really doing a good job of water bathing, this grebe. Very vicious sort of attack in its body there by sort of shaking out quite violently, actually. Anyway, obviously did the trick for itself, and it's moving fast. Wow. Well, we've had to come back over here to Juma for the last few minutes, but everybody, thank you so much for joining me here at the waterhole today. We were saying earlier just about the diversity and the variety of everything that we've seen, and it's actually rather impressive for the time of day that it is and just how hot it is. But thank you so much for all of your comments and questions today. We've had some fantastic chats. It was wonderful to talk to you all and also to hear from you for the questions and the comments that you sent through. It's wonderful to know we can talk about lots of different things and learn from each other. Now, as I said, I'll be back with you tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that. Remember that you can join us once again, same time, same place, 12:30 Central African time. It will be the Waterhole Show. and I'll see you then. Goodbye for now.